Okay, welcome back. In our last video, we added an HTML document with some content on it. Today, we're going to talk a little bit about some of the tools that you have available for semantic HTML. We'll add some content to this document, and then we're going to talk about styling. We might not get to styling in this video, but we'll talk about it at least. So I want to point you to a reference. This is MDN. So if you search MDN Web Docs in Google, you will get the MDN Web Docs. This is a fantastic website. There is so much information on so many different things. They have an MDN learning area where you can learn web development. You can learn to structure content with HTML. In fact, we're going to click on that. And you can see more information about HTML, how to structure things, the introduction, CSS, all sorts of stuff. They actually have a getting started with the web guide too. I didn't know that, but that's nice. They also have an introduction to HTML module where you can kind of click through this. The one thing I'll caveat MDN documentation with is it's sometimes really in-depth, and it can be a little overwhelming, I guess would be a good way to put it. When I talk to other software engineers and they need help with something, I always point them to the MDN Web Docs if it's web related. The reason why is that they are robust. You can find anything you need, probably anything you need, in the MDN Web Docs. However, they can be a little overwhelming. I'm going to point you to another site that I don't recommend often because in the past they've had things wrong. But for beginners, they're less overwhelming and it can be just enough to get you started. So this is W3 Schools. In fact, hey look, if I search W3 Schools, it tells you here, W3 Schools is not regarded as one of the best places to learn JavaScript or jQuery. I completely agree, but sometimes MDN can be overwhelming for beginners and it can be very, very difficult. So if you click on W3 Schools, and bear with me, I have not been to this site in a while. You can click on HTML up here, and you can see HTML elements. Look, H1s, paragraphs, we are working with those already. And you can see H1 paragraph, never skip the end tag. This is actually really important. We didn't talk about this in the last video. Your tags have an opening and a closing. Right, so this P, it opens, and then it closes. This body opens, there's some more content, but then it closes. All of your tags have to close. If they open, they close. There's also self-closing tags, but we will talk about those when we get to them. Okay, so you have paragraphs, styles, formatting, quotations, for example. In this chapter, we'll go through block quote, Q, ABBR, address, site, and BDO elements. So you can see here, they have a block quote, and they cite it. Q for short quotations. Okay. ABBR for abbreviations. This can be really nice when you need to get a spread of all the elements that you have available, and you don't really know how to find them. And again, just take this website with a grain of salt. Don't get too hooked on it. The MDN documentation is always a better solution if it's not overwhelming. So for example, if we wanted ABBR, we can see that. In fact, what I might recommend is use this to browse, and whenever you have something you're interested in, go to the MDN documentation and search it instead. So there's information here about each element. You can also see all of the elements here. There's a reference section, so this is another way to browse. And then two things here. So image is not standard. You can tell by this little warning sign. And then deprecated is the trash can. So basically don't use anything with the trash can. And if there's a little warning sign, it means that browsers, some browsers may support it, some may not. Okay, so with that in mind, we probably should figure out some content to add to this. I kind of like how this is going, but we're going to add a little bit more. So instead of this heading, I'm going to go ahead and remove this. We are going to take these elements. I'm going to use Command X to cut them. You can also right click and cut. And then I'm going to create a main element, and I'll paste them inside the main element. I'll tab this over so it stays uniform and looks nice. Again, the indentation doesn't actually affect the way it's rendered in the browser, but it just helps us keep track of opening tabs or opening elements and closing elements. Okay, now I'm going to add like an article. So an article element represents a complete or self-contained composition in a document, page, application, or site, and that is, in principle, independently distributable or reusable in syndication. This could be a forum post, magazine, newspaper, article, blog entry, user-submitted comment, etc. Also, this link here, look where it takes you. The MDN reference. Okay, so I'll create that article. And then we can add paragraphs to our article. So here's a really good example. We can take this paragraph right here. And I cut that and then I pasted it into my article. My name is Brad. Let's add some more sentences. I live in the United States. Specifically, I live in Indiana. I have 2 dogs and a loving wife. What else? I like to mentor junior developers, blog on my website, and create educational YouTube videos. Okay. If we wanted to add another paragraph, we can. We can add another paragraph here. And again, the indentation, this is called white space. This is also the area after this is called white space. The white space is flexible. Notice here we don't have any white space between the paragraph tag and then the actual content. We do have white space between the paragraph tag and the actual content. That's fine. Whatever is nicest for you to read this, because this is for you. This document is for you to maintain. Over the course of my life, I have lived in Indiana, Missouri, San Francisco, Louisville, Kentucky. Actually, we'll just say Kentucky. And actually, that's it for me. So, and Kentucky. My favorite state that I've lived in is Indiana, because most of my family is here. Okay, you get the point. Obviously, you don't want to copy this verbatim, so you can swap the content out to whatever makes sense for you. This is your personal web page, after all, not Brad's personal web page. So now if we come back to our browser, I have a tab open for the web page already. If you don't have a tab open, you can open Finder or Explorer, go to your desktop, click Web Project, and then Index HTML. I'm going to refresh, and we can see the content. This looks pretty good. Some information about me. It's actually a web page starting to tell you a little bit more about me. Let's talk about links. Links are what link the web together. Fair enough. That hopefully wasn't me trying to be silly. That's exactly what they do. So I'm going to talk about links. There are anchors, A for anchor. If the A element has an href attribute, then it represents a hyperlink labeled by its content. So let's do that. So if we type A and we give this an attribute, this is the first attribute we've actually written. So you can think of this attribute as more information for this anchor tag. So we have an anchor, and this is where it points to. Our tag's empty, right? So that's not great. Let's copy the blog on my website piece, or whatever you have that you'd like to link to, paste it inside the anchor, and then for the href, we're going to type https://www.bradseipert.com. You can type whatever you want. If you want to point to my blog, that's fine. If you have maybe a LinkedIn URL that you could use, or your Facebook profile, or your Twitter, or your Instagram, or something like that, your TikTok, you can put that here as well. I'm going to save my document. Make sure you save it. Command-S, Control-S, or save. And now come back to your browser and refresh. You'll notice this turned purple. Yours will probably turn blue. Mine turned purple because I have visited this website before in this browser. If you have not visited it, it will be blue. If I click on this, it takes me to my blog. That's cool. Let's come back. Use the back arrow to come back to your web page. Excuse me. And one thing that's pretty common is when we click on a link, for example, if I, what would be a good example of a link? I was looking for a link that would open in a new tab. That's pretty common. I don't think I have any up right now, actually, but it's very common to want to open your link in a new tab. The way that you do this is not simple. Unfortunately, it's not new tab or something like that. Instead, you use the target. So this specifies where to display the linked URL. If it's the name of a keyword for a browsing context like a tab, window, or iframe, if the following keywords have been set, they have special meanings. So self, blank, parent, top, self. So one of the nice things about target is you basically choose what tab you want to target. If you say blank, it will always target a new tab. If you give it a name, it will try to target that tab if it's already been open. Otherwise, it will open a new tab. I want this to always open a new tab. That's pretty common when you navigate the user to an external website. So I'm going to set it to target equals blank. Now that we're here, I can refresh, and now if I click on this, hey, it opened a new tab this time instead of navigating me away. Excellent. I'm going to do the same thing one more time. I have text create educational YouTube videos, so I'm going to take educational YouTube videos, Command X to cut, add an anchor, an A tag, with an href, and I'm going to go ahead and close that out, and then I'm going to paste now that I'm inside of that anchor. I'll go ahead and set the URL to https://www.youtube.com/Brad Seibert. And again, since we want this to open in a new tab, we need target equals underscore blank. Save, don't forget to save, and then go to your browser and refresh. Great, our YouTube link works too. Fantastic. I'm actually going to do one more thing. So if I go to create educational content on YouTube, I like this image. I want to use this image. Oops. Please let me use this image. Okay. So if I'm going to hit open image in new tab, and it gives me this image, this picture of me. I can copy this. So if I select this and hit Command C, and then go back to my browser, and then right before my H1, I'm going to type IMG. I'm going to open a new image tag, an IMG. This is a self-closing tag. There is no, I even tried in Visual Studio Code's like, let me help you close the tab or the tag that you need to close. You cannot close an image tag like this. The way you close an image tag is like this. They're self-closing. Images have a source, src, and this points to a URL. And in my case, I'm going to point to that image. We'll see if this works. It does. I refreshed, and now I have that picture of me, my text, and some information. This is really coming together. Now, one thing we didn't talk about, I like this circle. So when we get to the CSS section, we'll make this image a circle. And you can do that with CSS, so you don't actually have to edit the image or do any like Photoshop stuff or anything like that. So yeah, we'll get to that soon. So now that you've kind of explored anchor tags and some other tags like article, I would encourage you to look at the tag list here and see what is interesting to you. You might be interested in audio, for example. Maybe you have SoundCloud. Or maybe you create audio, and you could see how this works. The one thing to be aware of here is that this path is based on your current directory. So this /media, if you have an audio file and you want to link to it, you would have to, you know what, let's just do the same thing with images. I'm going to go grab this image of me with my dog, and I'm going to save this to my desktop web project, and I'm just going to save it right here. And I'm just going to say Brad with Luna. Okay, Now that I've saved it, you can see it in VS Code. There it is. It's a little pixelated, but that's okay. Use a nice quality image if you can, but for our project here, this is fine. So I have 2 dogs and a loving wife. Article here. I'm gonna add another H2, my dogs, and then I'm gonna add another article, and we'll write a little bit about my dogs. Luna is an Australian Shepherd, and Shrimp is a Feist mix. Despite being a Feist mix, he is not very feisty. It's always good to have a pun. Okay, the reason I wanted to do that, we can go ahead and refresh. So make sure you saved, refresh, great, more content. Okay, the reason I wanted to do that is we're gonna make another image, but this one's not going to point to a URL. It's going to point to a relative path. So we have an empty image tag like this. The relative path is really easy. Relative paths start with a slash. This slash is your web project folder. So in this case, I have bradwithluna.webp in this folder. So that's it. Now if I save this and refresh, oh no, it's broken. Okay. Sorry about that. So so in this case, we don't need the slash. We can do a dot slash, I believe. Let's try that. Yeah, dot slash works. So this is relative to where you are currently. So relative to where this index HTML is. And it's in the same folder. So dot is where we are currently. Slash is that folder. And then that's the path. So dot slash is where we are currently. Okay, so there's some information. We'll say this is a picture with Luna, not Shrimp. He is camera shy. Okay, so we have some stuff on our page. We'll stop there for this one. Explore those tags on MDN and find the ones that interest you. We'll talk about some like buttons in the future, but for now, explore and find the ones that are interesting. We'll sync back up in the next video and we'll start to style this so it actually looks fairly decent.